Good afternoon, folks. Thank you so much for being here. It is always a joy to be part of something that is impacting our nation. And welcome to all of you. This afternoon session is certainly no what do they say? No coincidence that we're doing the session. I think COVID-19 has shown us that if we want to make any difference, we're going to have to step up and do things different. And in also doing things different, we are often called upon to step up and even challenge each other. So this afternoon, welcome to you from near and far. We're not going to do our normal stuff this afternoon, but we're going to certainly make sure we give as much opportunity for everyone to participate. So we will be doing some opportunities for questions and answers, but also we'll do some time for breakout rooms. And I want to encourage you just to participate in those sessions. To get us going, this afternoon we have Dr. Rama Naidu amongst us, and Rama has been so gracious to come along and share with us his insights. And this session, the topic is striving for excellence. And then immediately after the opening question, we'll hand over to Rama, and then he will take over for the rest of the afternoon. So, Rama, I'm going to stop my share and then hand over to you immediately. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, Rama, and I'm so appreciative of your time again this afternoon. Welcome.
Great, so welcome everyone. I must say when I got this topic, striving for excellence, those of you who know me would know I always like to take an alternate view of many of these things, to disrupt the conversation. So it's slightly different from the way we normally see it. So the topic is striving for excellence and how to motivate your staff. That was the topic. And as usual, I took license and liberty to change it a little bit in terms of how we're going to talk about it today. So as usual, we always like to start off with the story of how we see this. Gadi, can you just mute yourself, please? Just stay muted unless you're going to talk. It just helps us maintain the space we're in. So we always start the work with the story. Gives us a chance to anchor it in our own personal experience. So we're going to break you out into groups of 3 for 10 minutes to have a conversation. And the conversation is very simple. First of all, say hi to the person because it's always connection before content. Say hi. I see you smiling, Philippa, that say these words. So it's familiar to most of you. And in the breakout room, I want you to share a story of something that you are excellent at, or that you were excellent at. Some of us are a bit older than the others, so you might have to go back into your memory to find a story when you're excellent. And then as you share the story, I want you to think about 2 things. One is, how did you achieve it? How did you achieve this outstanding thing, this excellent thing in your life? What were some of the drivers? What made it for you something that you classified, whoa, that was really excellent? So share the story first. Ask the question, what drove you to achieve that excellence? And even if you can identify the person or the events or whatever it was that was the trigger that made you achieve what you did. So talk about that for 10 minutes. So you got about 2 minutes to share your story and have a little bit of a discussion in the room about your reflections on that. Bring that back to the plenary room, and we'll use that as the starting point to unpack this notion about excellence and how we can make it alive in our schools or organization. So Selwyn, can we please break people up for 10 minutes in groups of 3, completely at random. So be prepared to meet with a stranger, say hi. Keep your camera on in the breakout room if you can. It helps everyone so we can see each other. We are a community. And I'll see you back in 10 minutes. Have fun. Come back from your time together. And we really want to hear a little bit about all the juicy things you guys spoke about in the breakout room. So in the chat function, I think you all know how to use the chat now. So just write down what struck you about this conversation you just had. And in terms of that, maybe what struck you, and the second question is, what were some of the drivers that made you achieve that excellent thing in your life? Just think about that, not a whole sentence, one word, one sentence. Let's see what we have in the room, and then we will talk about that. What struck you about the conversation you just had and what you saw in the chat? Natasha?
I think it's about people doing something that they love.
People doing something that they love.
I was just picking up a lot of that passion, meeting with people, connecting with people, being good at something. And so it sounds like people are doing what they excelled on is doing something that they loved.
Lovely. Thank you, Natasha. Thanks for sharing that. Now that we broke the ice, yeah.
Hi, sir.
Yeah, please go, Shal.
Yeah, to me, striving for excellence or a moment of excellence is just loving to make a difference each and every day of your life in the lives of other people. Loving to make a difference and to be the difference.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thanks, Shal.
Pleasure.
I had Philippa, you had your hand up, and Sibangile.
I actually type it in the chat as well, but I think if you look at all the comments that came in, is that we all got something in common. So there's a lot of things that we think alike. We all think that we're so different, but we're not.
Yeah, there's a lot of commonality, right? And Nadia says, us, we, and our people. Love that. Sebagila, you had your hand up?
Yes, I think it's the same what has been written on the chat as well as what Philippa just said. And over and above that, as human beings, we have this need of togetherness. And in that sense, we feel that we make a contribution by being there for somebody else. Learning together, teaching each other things that we've experienced. And it's quite key that each and every individual by themselves, they are not fulfilled, but together we are fulfilled when we work towards a common goal.
Thank you. Thank you, Spingler. Joanne?
I personally...
Joanne, you're muted. Just unmute yourself, please, dear.
Ah,
okay.
Good. Very sorry. From everything that I see that's said here, and just generally, I think a true leader is one that actually dig in and work with their staff and not just delegate. It's important to delegate, and it's important to obviously give instruction and, you know, be in charge of certain things, but I think also to show that you are not scared of being wrong sometimes and be part of the solution, but also to encourage your staff to come up with solutions. And you can't always be right as a leader, but obviously teamwork is exactly what was said as one of the things, teamwork and being part of the whole process. And just put it all in as well, being part of the whole solution.
Absolutely, Joanne. Thank you. In fact, I think we can all go home now because the wisdom is already in this room. you guys know what this is about. So to me, it's interesting that when we speak of excellence, you know, striving for excellence, like it's something out there, you know, that we have to do this work to get there. Yet when we look at the comments of what you guys put in, we saw words like passion and love and life purpose and giving and something that moved you to do something. And the reason why we asked that question was that when we think of our own personal experiences, excellent doesn't mean coming first, isn't it? It doesn't mean coming first. And I think that's a really important statement. So this thing about striving, when I saw this thing on the topic striving, I felt deep pain. You know, this is going to be a really hard work to strive for excellence. Everyone tells us we want excellent results. You want your school to be excellent. And so I Googled this thing. I said that this word was curious to me. And this is what came up when I went through all the meanings. It says excellence is to continuously build inner strength to overcome life's challenges, whatever they might be. To continuously build inner strength to overcome life challenges, whatever they might be. And each of us has different life challenges. So to have one word to say excellent is difficult, right? Because it means different things to us. So as a school principal, you tell your staff, we want to have excellence at the school. You have 50 different ideas about what excellence means. And we expect people on our staff to know what's in our head when we as leaders are supposed to model something to them in this space. And it says further, it says, all our failures, our mistakes and downfalls are what makes us excellent and resilient. And Joanne, it talks to what you spoke about, the ability to say, I don't know, I'm wrong, I made a mistake. Vulnerability is perhaps the greatest thing we can model as leaders in this space. So there's something about this word excellence that we have to unpack differently in our minds before we take it out into the world for people. And that is not one single definition of it. There are many definitions of it. Someone may have an experience for them that's really for them the most outstanding part of their lives. For me, it might appear to be completely insignificant. It's a small thing. But to that person at that moment, that's what excellent meant. So there's something about how we as leaders are able to tap into this notion of meeting people where they are at. What's the story running in their heads of what they see as excellent before we start to try and change someone, strive for something? Because folks, I think we all know one thing. You can't change anyone. You can try, you can use a stick, you can make people comply, you can bully them, and you might even get compliance. It might be really malicious compliance. So you might believe that, wow, I've got people striving for their best at the school. It might just be you. So to come back to your point, Joanne, the notion is that if we start with ourselves, it's probably the best place to start to unpack what this word excellent is for us as we work. So I really want to make use of this time together. I was intrigued that we have such a high number of people for this particular talk on motivation for excellence. And so I'm curious about what the dilemmas are that you face as leaders, whether you're in business or in school, when it comes to this thing called excellence. What are you grappling with that you hope to get out of this time that we have together? What is the big dilemma you have in trying to create this excellence at your school, in your organization? Try and name it. And you can name it as a question that you're dealing with. If you don't want answers, the questions are far more important than the answers. Let's see what questions we come up with. And that's going to help us frame a little bit what we can do together here through our collective wisdom to support each other as we go through our work. Because folks, the reality is there is no single way to do this. And if I came here to pretend to you that I'm an expert on motivating for excellence, I'd be lying. I would not dare be so arrogant. So we're all in this space together to co-learn and co-create. So we're going to break you up into your rooms again for 10 minutes. And this time, those who didn't have a chance to speak can do so. Again, say hi. And this time, I want you to talk about your dilemma. What am I grappling with when it comes to excellence and motivating my staff and the people I work with? What's the big question that you're working with? And we're going to use that to frame the rest of the conversation. And it applies to you whether you are in business, whether you're just an observer, or whether you're a principal of a school or SGB. Does not matter where you are. We're always looking for this thing to be better than, to improve ourselves. Okay? So Selvan, can we please break people up for 10 minutes? Groups of 3. What are you grappling with when it comes to your motivation for excellence when the people you work with? What are your big questions for you that you'd like us to talk about? Selvan, are we there?
Ready to do that right now.
Okay, 10 minutes. So welcome back. And again, I want to invite you, let's just put into the chat. Let's just see what gold we have in the room again. What are the big questions you're grappling with when it comes to this thing about excellence? And as boldly as you can, boldly and boldly, just write it down. So we see what the dilemmas are and we can talk into that. So just write in the chat now, please. What's the question you're grappling with that you want more clarification on when we speak about the striving for excellence? We watch the chat as we put it in. Just the questions you have, the thing that you're grappling with, or you want us to talk about. How do we get everyone to buy in? I love that, Jacobus. Buy in. People taking accountability. How do you make your staff see and believe that they can achieve excellence? Wilfred, how to get the mourners on board? Love that. Not everyone's on the same page and has the same values. How true. Zelda, sometimes we need to do that too. Kick their butt. Shifting mindsets. Getting the context right for humans to excel in the workplace. Hetty, we always have one teacher in the room who's not going to buy into our program. If everyone says yes to your program, something is wrong.
Oh my goodness.
People strive to individual goals instead of a common goal. So again, as you watch the questions coming up on the screen, what strikes you about the questions that you're dealing with? You had your own question, and now you've got 30, 40 other people putting their questions in. What strikes you? What do you see? And just say it. It's okay. Don't worry about the question how.
So I'll say it. So it's always about everyone else, but not about ourselves. So that's what I'm seeing. Thanks,
Thank you, Kay. And that's a big one, right? It seems that a lot of it is about other people and not about ourselves. Anyone else?
I don't know. I'm worried that I now shocked everybody else. They don't want to say anything. So.
That's just your observation. You own it. Joanne?
Absolutely.
I just think also that people are scared to disagree. And it's so important to understand that we are different personalities. I saw one of the comments that someone made was the fact that people aren't always accepted for their uniqueness. And it's true. And I think we need to work where, even though we are different people with different personalities, different personality types, but different ways of working, that we can still reach a common goal. Even though we might be different in our way of getting to the goal, we can still reach that common goal by just putting our own needs aside and working towards the common goal of whatever it is you need to achieve. I think that's quite important. I actually saw that today in my own staff as well, where that could be a problem with some teachers. You know, they keep looking into their own goals rather than the ultimate goal and what is best for the school or what is best for reaching the common thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is so true. So folks, I want to just ask by show of hands, how many of you have been to the community building workshop? Just raise your hand so I can see. Great. So I want to go back to Kay's point that the culture of the world that we live in is one of blaming someone else, of fixing other people up, like there's something wrong with them. And the reason I asked you to start with your story was really significant, because I want you to recognize that even in your story, there were instances where people tried to fix you up, where you came up through it despite that, where you drove yourself, you recognized your passion, you connected to your purpose. No one did it for you. Yet, we think as leaders, our task is to motivate people to be excellent. We've got to fix them up, straighten them out, get them to buy in, align with what we think, and work with our definition of what excellence means. And you must all know by now, and think about this question really deeply. When you try to change someone, whether it's your child, your partner, a teacher in your school, because you had a picture in your mind, it's hard work, right? And the harder the work is, the more we can blame the other person for the problem. This person is not buying in. They're not aligned. They're a troublemaker. They only think of themselves. They don't think of the common good. So if we know these things keep coming up over and over again, and folks, for us as leaders, this is really hard work. And if we don't watch it and change it, it will suck the joy out of us. The passion that we feel for the work, for our children, and why we're doing this will get sucked out of us until it becomes just a job. And when it's just a job to me, I can motivate no one. Because you can put on the biggest smile you want to, but people see right through it. Passion is worn on your face, in your eyes, in your smile, in the way you behave. It can't be learned. There's no workshop on how to build passion, how to show people that you're passionate. You have to live it, right? In a practical way. So one of the first things we have to change when you think about this thing, and excellence is just one topic. So as leaders, we've been trained to think that we have to be the people who take all the stuff on our shoulders. We must lead the way, we must model the behavior, we must know the answers, and we're responsible for motivating people. How can you make a teacher passionate about school and the children if there's no passion there? You get a motivational speaker to tell them and move them and make them cry and all that crap. Doesn't work, folks. It might work for a week, but if you want something consistent, we have to change the way we turn up as leaders. Nobody wants to buy into your beautiful idea. And I'm not saying you don't have beautiful ideas. They're beautiful for you. Please keep it there, but it's your idea. It's your stuff. It's your gift. Don't think that if other people don't see it, there's something wrong with them. They just have a different gift. They just see it differently. So the first shift is this notion of you being the person who has to answer all those difficult questions you put up in the chat. Why people are not lining up, why they're not buying in, why are they disrupting it? All these things are because there's something missing in the system, in the structure. There's something missing in the structure. I can see, Keshazana, you have your hand up. Did you want to say something? Kesha? Or is your hand just up? Are you good?
Yes,
okay.
I'm okay.
Okay. So the first big shift is to recognize that each of us as leaders can never be experts on someone else's life. You just can't be. Unfortunately, the books, the leadership gurus have taught us that we have to play that role. That we must be perfect. We must know everything. We read all these books. It's $1 billion industry, right? How to be a great leader. 10 tips and tricks to become a great, they don't tips and tricks, folks. It's not there. Either you have the passion for this work or it's not there. You can't learn this passion. So the first shift is to shift from expert to convener. So your task is not to show them what the vision is, not to show what excellence is, but to bring them together like we are today, to ask them the question I just asked to you. What does excellence mean for you? Simple as that. And we get these beautiful stories coming from their personal experience of how they experience excellence in their lives. And then you pose a series of beautiful questions. So if there are 15 people and we all see excellence differently, how do we create a common vision for us at this school that we can all believe in? And at that point, as leader, you shut the hell up. Let your voice be the last one in the room. You listen, and you listen, and you listen. And as people hear their own thoughts about what can be possible, and do not get interruptions from the person with power, which is you, the leader, the more their thoughts become amplified and clearer. And that's how we start to create the we in the room. If we don't do that, we are always directing the action. And what we've done is we created a space where people have learned that behavior extremely well. So they sit with arms folded and wait for the great leader to tell them what excellence looks like. And then on top of that, how are we going to get there? And so the response is very clear. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Of course, we'll do that. And 2 months later, you're having the same conversation again. And then your response is, these bloody people, they're not committed. And comes back to Kay's question, what is my role in all of that? What am I doing that's creating the sense of people not being committed, people thinking it's just a little game. They don't want to be accountable for anything. And you think that it's about them. This is the uncomfortable truth, folks. It's about us. It's about how we turn up in those spaces. We've been brought into a structure and process that is patriarchal, that is hierarchical, that makes us believe that the only way to get things done is by using power over. We have not learned to appreciate how to use power with, because it's scary. We're scared of losing control. We're scared of making mistakes because that fear is so deeply ingrained in us that we have to be right about everything. And people say, well, so the leader is perfect. They know all the answers. So why do I have to work? Let me just sit here and do what I need to do. And I'll watch for cues from the great leader about what excellence is, and I'll try and live up to that. And most times they fail. And we get disappointed. And they sense the disappointment. And so we start a loop of hopelessness. So they blame you, you blame them, and everyone's quite happy because we're all saying the same thing. It's not me, it's that person. They are saying it's you. If I got your teachers together right now and asked them about excellence, it will be a very different kind of conversation. And you will be at the center of it. Your tips and tricks and strategies of buy-in, alignment, all the things that we do to get people to be excellent. So your first shift for you, and I always like to call it a 6-degree shift, it's a small shift, is to let go of the notion of always having the answer. I have a picture of excellence, but I don't know what it means for you. So if we have 45 answers of excellence and we want it to be at the school, a school of excellence, if we can't sit and talk together as equals around a table about what excellence means for us, including the children at your school, including the ground staff, your SGB, your SMT, your stakeholders, so that when we speak about a vision, it really is something that we all own. If we don't own it, if we don't believe our voice was heard in that statement for what excellence means, we can't buy into it. It's someone else's, no matter how profound it might be. And you might have a beautiful statement at your school. We are a school of excellence. But you've got 400 different views of what excellence means in that school. And once you recognize that, if you do nothing else today, but to recognize that, and you saw from when we had the chat, the powerful wisdom that came into this room, just in this room, of the kind of questions you raised and the resilience you have in your own life when you were excellent at something. So I always like to pose the question when we do this work to stretch us into a possibility of something that's different. And the question I would always ask would always start with the words, what if? What if we at our school really were serious about creating a common vision? How would we do that? What would it take from me as the leader to do that? So it's not buy-in, it's not alignment. It's really our vision. And whether you speak to a child in grade 6, a member of the ground staff or the SGV, they're saying the same thing with great pride because they own it. What if that could happen at your school? What would happen if that vision was lived, was real, and excellence was there in so many different forms in that school or organization? Not just one form, not just in academic results. You know, what we measure seems to indicate us what excellence is. And what we measure, it's what gets monitored, what gets amplified. So our schools have become places like that. Slowly, we've sucked out of our school curricula the art, the music, the drama, the singing, all the so-called non-essential things. Things where our children could be excellent, where they could shine, where they could get a star and say, maybe I didn't come 10th, in the first 5 of the class, but you know what? When it comes to singing, man, can I sing? Or sports day, can I run? If we don't give people more places to shine, to show their excellence, then we got this one size fits all. This is how we define excellence at our school. You're either in or you're out. So what chance does a child have in a place like that? So whilst we might be thinking we're doing great things, in fact, we might be doing the opposite. Instead of getting children to realize their potential, all we're telling them is, listen, if you're not in the top 10 in your class, you are useless. And that's just the truth, folks. If a child is not in the top 10 in the class, they go through their entire school lives being virtually invisible. No other places to shine, no places for excellence. So a question for you, besides the academic stuff, what else can we do in the places we work in to bring the stories that you shared in our group about their stories of excellence? What can they bring to the table, their gifts of excellence that they can bring into your school, into your organization, into your lives, that might change something so dramatically that it won't have to be hard work for you? Right now, from your questions, it seems frustrating. It seems like really hard work. You know, like you're a salesperson. You're selling insurance to someone. Please buy this damn thing. I need to make my sales target, but no one is buying. No one is buying. They're not interested in this vision of yours. They want something that they own in the space. So the first thing is the shift to a convener. The second point that you can think about, and this is not advice, these are possibilities I want you to think about, is how do you build this container in the spaces you work in? Because the present container is not built like that. The present container is built for you to be in charge, for you to lead from the front, for you to be the expert, for you to tell people what to do, to get people to buy in. So to think constructively, the space I'm in my school, in my organization, when I have meetings, when I have gatherings, how do I do this? Is my voice the most powerful in that space? Do I listen to what people are saying? And do I listen to understand and not to respond? Do I listen to make you feel important and say, wow, Maggie, when you just asked that question, that really landed for me. And in that instant, I make a connection to Maggie, which I didn't have before. And I said, Maggie, tell me more about that. So the best thing you can do in the container is to create a space for us to listen to each other. Listen to each other. And sometimes that's all there is to it. I don't think it's rocket science. If we all just sit in the room to listen, that we all want our children to be the best they can be. We want them to blossom in life. There's no doubt about that. But we just have different roads of getting there, different views of it. We can reignite the passion. But this time the passion comes not from you. It comes from the people themselves, by the container that you build. So think about how you have your gatherings, how you do these talks. When you talk to people about motivating them for excellence or whatever, how do you do it? And you know how you do it now, right? So again, I'm asking you to say, are you willing to make a little shift to try and do it just a little bit differently and see how it lands and keep it authentic? Don't keep it as a gimmick, as a clever trick that you learned at a workshop. This is the way we always turn up as ourselves in spaces authentically. It's not a learned behavior, but it's a change in our mindsets, how we do it. Once you have the container and you got this clear sense that this is not my baby, this is ours. We're going to birth this thing together in this space if we want to own it. Once we do that and people feel connected to each other, and I know your story, not just you, the teacher, you, the employee, but your story. And that's why stories become so important. When you share a story with someone about your life, it's an instant connection. Would you agree? When you're in a space with 3 people and you share a story with someone that's deep for you, it's profound. It might seem like it's just 3 minutes, but in the 3 minutes, the first connection is made, and as an invitation to deepen the connection. So whether it's excellence, whatever the topic might be, the recipe is still the same. Create a container that connects people to their stories, and where you as leader listens deeply to what's coming out of their mouths, out of their thoughts. And folks, the one thing I've learned in all the years I've been doing this work, there has never been to date, never a case when there was something that I knew in my head. I said, wow, that's such a brilliant thing. That if I didn't hold back, it came from the group. Every single time. No matter how profound I thought it was. If I just waited long enough, with the intention in my mind, the wisdom is already in the room. My task is to bring it into the center. Amplify it. Mirror back in an affirmative way their wisdom, their stories, their depth, their passion. And then the magic comes on its own once you do that. You don't have to do anything. So in fact, when you use this way of working, it liberates you. There's no pressure on you to do anything. And Joanne, it comes back to your point about saying, actually, guys, I messed up here. Oops, sorry about that. What can we do now? This didn't work. I thought I had it, I didn't. Sometimes that kind of disarming and honesty is all you need for people to say, wow, so you're human like us too. You make mistakes, you get tired, you fall down, you cry, you fail. It's that human frailty that's the connection that true leaders have, to say, I don't have all the answers, but I know if we talk long enough together, we're going to find the answers. And we have to believe that absolutely in the spaces we're in. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is that be careful of the stories we carry in our heads. They're just stories. They're always stories of the other. What's wrong with them? What's wrong with the world? And just be conscious of these stories. So catch yourself when you're with other teachers, when you're family, and they ask you, so how are things at school? What do you find yourself saying? Is it the same thing all the time? Is it these bloody teachers? They're so demotivated. Is it these kids? Oh, look, they're so ill-disciplined. The parents don't, all the usual stories we hear, right? And if you are saying those stories, I want you to ask yourself an uncomfortable question. Catch yourself and ask the one question. Is that the whole story? Is that the only story? And you all know in our schools, there are spaces of amazing wisdom, complete creativity, innovation, passion. All these things are alive. But we choose the story of deficit and scarcity. It's the world we are brought up in. Make people always feel less than. If I make you feel less than, I control you. Because I know more than. It's not complicated, but it's actually quite deep if you think about it. If I make you feel less than, it makes me feel more than. So I become the expert on your life. And nobody wants to have an expert in your life. We all know this. And when people try and do that to us, we rebel. We break commitments. We disagree. We disengage. All the things that you are seeing in others, that you wrote in the chat, is because of how we feel when someone does this to us. When someone tries to control you. So just be aware of the story running in your head. And the next time someone asks you, so what's happening in your school? See whether you can frame a different story. Just try it. Talk about the teacher who comes to work at 7 o'clock in the morning and leaves at 3:30 in the afternoon after everyone's left. Talk about the teacher whose classroom is always absolutely clean. The teacher who comes on a Saturday morning to help kids do extra tuition without asking for money. They're there, hundreds of them. They're the unsung heroes. Those are places of excellence, actually. I think we see excellence as something that's out there like a beautiful trophy on the wall. We are a school of excellence. I don't believe it exists like that. I think it exists in small places, in small things that we do. And if we start the work, it comes on its own. You don't have to drive it. Let go of that. Don't try to drive it, because you'll always alienate people by doing that. Just model the behavior. And I'm saying just model the behavior like it's so easy, but it means, folks, that for you as leaders, for all of us, you're always on display, whether you like it or not. Whether you're in the pub, at a party, at school, at home, at a social gathering, people are watching you. It's a big responsibility. So what kind of behavior do you model? What do I model when I go out into the space? So I don't need to talk about excellence. I model it. I demonstrate vulnerability. I demonstrate the power of my listening. I demonstrate the willingness to admit when I'm wrong. If I can do that, that is the single biggest thing you can do in your organizations to give people permission to do the same. A lot of us are very good at saying the words. Living it is not so easy. That's the work. Because sometimes, folks, it's hard. It's really hard. So I'm not kidding you that this is an easy journey. It's hard work. But you are in a position of leadership. You have a responsibility. And I think we often mistake who our clients really are. And when I work with schools, I keep reminding people all the time, your real client is often not even in the room with you. It's our children. Yeah, whose future is in our hands, and their voice is not in the room. Their voice is not there. And this places an awesome responsibility on each of us to recognize that voice. And I tell you what I do when I have these workshops is I bring an empty chair into the room and I put it there in the center of the room. So we're reminded when we start squabbling and fighting and all the things we do, hey, the child is not here. What if we just focus on the child? And what could we do to make this child achieve excellence in their lives? And maybe that's where we should start. Maybe starting in the wrong place. Maybe we need to ask our children, what would they like to shine at? What would they like to do? And folks, once we start thinking in this way as convener and not as leader, not as expert, and we allow the other voices to come in, it does more than liberate you. It brings in 30 voices that you didn't have before. And as those voices get amplified, you have less work to do. Your task becomes only very simple. Your task is 3 things as a leader. You tell people why you're gathering. We're gathering to talk about excellence at our school. You bring people together, you convene the gathering, and then you shut the hell up. You just listen. Just 3 things. And I challenge you to try it and see what happens. Name the thing that you're talking about clearly. This is why we're gathering. Bring people together, and then just make sure your voice is the last voice to speak. In fact, the only words you should say at the end are, wow, I'm blown away by your wisdom. Thank you so much for all of that. I really appreciate that. And then enough. No great, fancy, powerful, moving speech at the end. That's reserved for the movies and for the soapies. This is real life for us. And the more we de-amplify our power, the more the power comes into the room from others. And if we just shift it like that, then things start to change. So those are some of the elements. And the thing for me is that shift for each of us as leaders to convening the gathering, to talk about whatever you want to talk about, in this case, excellence. And then bring it back and see whether I won't even ask you to say, see whether it works. You experience it for yourself and see what shifts inside of you when you do it. And then you could even ask people at the end of your meeting, so how was this gathering for you? How was it for you? How do you experience it? And then again, just be quiet. And if it's your SMT or your SGB or a smaller group and you're silent long enough, someone always breaks the silence. The trick for us is to hold the silence, because the temptation is after 10 seconds, you put your voice into the space and people are still thinking. People are still unsure about you. Is this guy serious or what? Does he really want to hear me or not? So when they get past that, then the magic starts to come into the room. And that's how you start. That's how you start the work. So just, and folks, have fun with it. I think we take ourselves far too seriously as leaders, because the pressure is on, you know, from the department, from everyone else. You have to perform, you have to get this, you have to do that. And it's just pressure and pressure and pressure. And I'm challenging each of you, if you try this way of working in the world and see how you can do it in your context, you're going to feel 30% less pressure in your life right now. And the less chance that when you retire, you won't die within 10 years of retirement with sugar, diabetes, pressure, stress, and all the things that principals suffer with when you leave your school. And that's already such a big positive, right? You can come out of your school and feel more relaxed with it. So some of the questions you did was about the how. How the hell do you do this? So a couple of things I picked up, which I found useful. One is to change your mindset about the people you work with. And I want to challenge you to say that most of us have a deficit mindset of people we work with. They're difficult, they're troublesome, they don't want to work, they're not passionate, they're not engaged, That's single stories. So how about if you change the story, say, actually, these people in this room are wise, they have amazing stories to tell, and I just have to build a container for it to happen. Don't worry whether it's right or wrong. Just change the story in your head. You know, folks, if you tell people a single story over and over again, and even if you don't say it, but people feel it whenever you convene a meeting, eventually they become that. Tell people they're lazy, and they get lazier. They live into your prophecy. Tell people that you don't trust them, And so you put more controls into place, that they're being watched like a child. And they learn to find ways to break that trust. It's almost a dissenting voice against this need to be controlled by you, by us in this space. And the interesting thing for me is the more we let go of this, and there's always a risk. Not everyone's going to say, oh my goodness, Wilfred, that's an amazing idea. Whoa, that's changed my life. They're going to disagree with you. They'll resist you. But Rome wasn't built in one day, right? You have to be consistent and say, guys, I believe in this way. This is my shift in my head, and I'm going to do this. What you do with it is up to you, but this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to turn up. I'm going to listen to your wisdom. I'm going to amplify your ideas, and I'm going to shut up and listen to what you're saying, because I know you have the wisdom. And just keep on doing it. By the second or third time, when they realize it's not a gimmick, you're going to feel that change, the shift in the energy in the room, and then you can start working with it. So excellence is not a concept out there. It's a way of being. It's how you turn up in the world. What's driving you from the inside? And you're interested in asking other people, so what's driving you from the inside? What's driving you? And the moment they share the story, you have a connection to a greater purpose. And then you can start your work after that. And the second thing is that when you're in these gatherings and you ask people for their opinions, the mistake we make is we often don't follow through with it. So we tell people, that's a wonderful idea. Thank you for that. But it stops there until the next meeting. So you have to walk the talk. If someone comes up with an initiative about excellence, the question I'll ask is, so Irene, that's your idea. Would you like to drive it for us? And Irene, because you are passionate about this thing and you brought it up, you say, I would love to. And so I'd ask, Irene, how can I support you in doing that? How can we support you? And then Irene speaks to us and says, well, it would be useful if people help me, if I can use their free periods, if I can have some assistance after school with this group. And as Irene now becomes the leader of the group and not me, the whole thing is shifted to Irene. And Irene's commitment is different now because you stood up. I didn't say, Irene, you will drive it. I said, Irene, would you like to drive it? And you could say no, and that would be okay. But if you say yes, and I can ask you, so Irene, what does your commitment mean? How can we support you? So we go beyond just the talk, into a space where you own that particular thing, Irene, and you now drive it. Imagine in a room like this, you now have 5 people in that room who've stood up from their place of passion to say, I will drive that. Maybe I love singing. I'm an artist. I'm a dancer. I don't know what those skills are, right? But would you like to start a dance class for our grade 6s? What a question. Of course I would. I'm a dancer. I would love to do that. So how can we help you? We can give you a space to do that. We can give you some free time to do that. How do we do that? And so it's not just the talk, it's the action that's linked to the talk. So awareness first of the gifts, and then link it to an action step. So put your money where your mouth is and say, how can I support you? And use the word I. So if it means if I as a principal say, ma'am, Irene, I will take your lesson on a Tuesday to give you a chance to work with the kids. I'm modeling something, right? Right there. Clear, simple, straightforward. I put myself out there without any sense of grandstanding because I'm showing Irene, thank you for standing up, Irene. That's excellence right there. And you go for it, girl. And I know for sure, I don't have to control you. I don't have to tell you what to do. You are just going to fly with that thing. And you're going to surprise all of us. And you know what? You might change 20 kids' lives forever. That's something to think about, right? When you had your questions, folks, We go back full circle, right? When we asked you what excellence means, you guys spoke about inner strength, inner beauty, passion, resilience. We all have that in abundance. The problem is no one's ever asked us. No one's ever invited us into the space to say, share your gift with us. What would you like to do if you had the chance? And it might not be maths or science. In fact, in most cases, it might not be that. But surely, if we love the work we do and we want to re-inculcate this love again in this space, then it must start from inside and go out. It can't be the other way out. It can't be something that we instill. We have a document and a policy on excellence. We get this from the department. This is what excellence looks like in your school. We'll be measuring it. So please make sure you comply. Really? that can't happen. So the question I want to leave you with, given all that you've experienced from your wisdom in the room and what we shared about this shift in your mind, what would be the one thing, just the one little thing, what I call the 6-degree shift in your life, that tomorrow, when you get back to your school or your organization, you can do differently? Just the one thing. And remember, this doesn't have to be a profound thing. And I'm asking you to commit that into the chat, because when you do that before this group, you now have about 120 witnesses to your commitment to do something. So we're not looking for big things. What's the one thing that you could shift in your life tomorrow, not next week, when you turn up in your organization, that shifts this awareness into an action step? So I'm opening the chat up and just put it in. Let's see what comes up. And be brave. Come, we ask you to stand up now. Speak from your place of passion. Shut up and listen. Talk less. Listen more and talk less. What's the one thing you will do differently tomorrow based on what we've experienced in the room today from each other, through our questions and our wisdom? Can we have a 7-degree shift? Of course. Create space to listen. These are big things, folks. I'm really moved by what you're saying. Beautiful. Speak once and listen twice. So there is a feedback form there that's in the chat. So please, we would appreciate if you fill that form in. It takes you just a couple of minutes as you put your things in. So as you put those comments in, and they're beautiful, when you get back home tonight, I want you to personalize it. So if we look at Maureen's comment, every person is capable to give space to recognize. So Maureen, you would say, I am capable, and I will give space to everyone to be recognized. So when you get back home, personalize it. Or Jacoba says, listen, I will listen more. The more personal it becomes, the more I own what I'm going to say. See, Sherry would say, I will open my mind and heart when I get into my work tomorrow. And Sherry, you will know what that means for you. And Jacoba's got it. I will listen more. Great stuff. Give compliments. Yeah, Charles, that's such a simple one, right? Find one person to give a compliment to every day, a different person, and mean it. Mean it. Beautiful stuff. How can I help? So, in fact, folks, I just want to remind you that there's nothing new that I told you today in this time that we were together. It was simply amplifying what you'd already put into the chat, the questions you already had, and the wisdom that's already embedded in this room, in the space you're in. Take comfort in that. We have wisdom in ourselves, in our lived experience. And all we need to be is to be aware that just as I have this, others have that gift too. They have the same rights that I do. So I just need to recognize that, live into the space, and let the rest flow from there as you work. This is not hard work, it's just working differently in this space. If it's hard work, if the work doesn't bring you joy and ease, then you're on the wrong road. It should be joyful. So use that as your touchstone as you do the work. So thank you very much for our time together. Please, if you could fill in that little feedback form. It's been absolutely great working with you. And I think, Selwyn, we'll make the chat available in terms to people as a recording, right? Will we? Because the goal is there. If you look at your questions, what you brought into the room, all the stuff is already in the room. It's been an absolute pleasure being with all of you today. And to me, this is not work. This is just joyful. Being with all your amazing people, listening to you and your stories, and being willing to share it in this space so powerfully. And that if you keep this alive here and just take this into the world, it will be enough. You are enough. In fact, that you're more than enough. Okay, so take care, everyone. Selwyn, over to you.
Thank you to Rama. Rama, thank you for your input to this afternoon session. I hope people found it insightful and valuable, and that people can go and implement. The key part of today's session is that I would go and implement, that you would go and implement, and see how making some of these small shifts could bring a difference in the world we have around us. Our next session is on the 27th of May, and the topic is mental health impacts, how mental health impacts overall well-being. And we'll be talking about supporting teacher and learner well-being. And for that session, we have two folks coming along, Dr. Busisiwe Twala and Zoleka Limakwe. And I'm just so excited that during this COVID period, we've just seen what the impact that COVID has had, but also what COVID has amplified for us. So how do we look after the well-being of both teachers and learners, and what are some of the lessons we can learn from each other?